and to further expand my knowledge of the luxury industry. And this is basically where I see the art and consumer goods meeting. That's why I'm studying it, and that's why I decided to start my own consultancy, because I thought, to connect all these elements of consumer goods, luxury consumer goods, art, and the Korea, the knowledge about the Korean market, I thought, maybe that's kind of a very good starting point to kind of really put all of these different elements into one.
Hi, everyone. Welcome back to the Social Hotelier podcast with me, Sam-Erik. Today, I'm thrilled to have with us a true expert on the pulse of Korea luxury market, where art and innovation and immersive experiences converge. Our guest has a deep understanding of what drives the world's most demanding consumers in one of the most dynamic and trend-setting markets. With over half of the Korea's population concentrated in the broader capital area, innovation here isn't just about being bold. It's being thoughtful, on brand, and ahead of curves. Whether pioneering retail experiences or shaping the future of luxury and hospitality, our guest brings invaluable insights into what makes Korea a global leader in pushing boundaries. So my guest today is the Chief Executive Officer and founder at DKL at Company, Dominika Kustosz-Lee. Welcome, Dominika, and thanks for joining us today.
Thank you for having me, Sam-Erik. I'm really honored to be here speaking with you, and hopefully that your audience will enjoy the episode.
I'm very much looking forward to this conversation. So, first, I think for our audience to get some background, can you share with me about your professional experience and why you founded DKL at Company and why in Korea?
Sure. So, why in Korea? That's a long story now. I've been here for 16 years. Originally came here as a student. I actually majored in Korean studies. I'm originally from Poland. And yes, came here a long time ago and ended up staying. I first, like I said, was an exchange student. Then I received a Korean government scholarship for actually studied fine art. And then kind of got thrown into the world of Korean business, building back on my experience as a Korean language student in Poland. I was a student where when basically Samsung, LG, and all the conglomerates were entering the Polish market. And so very early on, I had business development experience. So that's what I built on after my university here in Korea. And actually, how I ended up founding my company, it's basically to connect my expertise in doing business development and directing Korean market initiatives in the digital commerce sector and consumer goods sectors. And I wanted to connect that with my background in fine art. Like I mentioned, I studied painting and also Korean culture. And I'm also currently attending the executive master in luxury management at Bocconi in Milan. And to further expand my knowledge of the luxury industry. And this is basically where I see the art and consumer goods meeting. That's why I'm studying it, and that's why I decided to start my own consultancy, because I thought, to connect all these elements of consumer goods, luxury consumer goods, art, and Korea, the knowledge about the Korean market, I thought, maybe that's kind of a very good starting point to kind of really put all of these different elements into one thing.
Oh, very interesting. Yeah, it's very fascinating what you're involved with, and particularly Korea, which I'm very fond of course, having going there for many years. And I'm so amazed that of the changes and how dynamic it is, and how with such a neck-breaking speed, how things are excellently being developed and put in front of the consumers for them to choose. This is what right for them, and so I think this is quite interesting. Uh, Innovation is actually one part which I'm so fascinated about in the Korean market, and Korean being such a highly saturated market, especially when with half of the population concentrated in the broader Seoul capital area. So, how does this density of influence of urban density influence the need for innovation in luxury and art experience? What is your view on that?
I think this question really hits the nail on the head. I think that the density is one of the major factors that contributes to what the market is, I think. Obviously, there are different elements to it. The amazing infrastructure that the country built out over the years, the internet connection that, it's not only like maybe in some other countries in Asia where you have mobile first, completely mobile first, because the internet connection in general isn't as well established. But here it's really swift and easier. Credit cards everywhere. You have, and then the mobile connection as well. So people are used to really just using technology because it works everywhere. There are no disruptions in services. And then obviously we have Samsung here, so people have access to the newest mobile phones, and so they are really able to with ease have the newest, most advanced models, which also makes them kind of very advanced users of such technology. And they have everyone has like a master, super device in their hand, basically in the country. And then with the speed, I think, of the development country in general, like over the past 70 years, Koreans are just used to things changing rapidly and just trying out new things. And even elderly people here, they mostly use smartphones and they're fine with that, right? So I think that combined with the density that you mentioned, so having everything basically happen in one city or one conglomeration is actually city, right, in the end, because everyone else from around just comes into the city. It just gives for a very fertile ground for to try out new things, because there is an opportunity to constantly bring new elements into the market, and people also learn very fast, right? People are exposed to a lot of different stimuli. So for example, with brand activations, right, you just really you have numerous activations within these hotspots, such as Dosan Park in Apgujeong, or Songsu, which used to be an industrial district, but is now the place where all the pop-up stores happen. And so basically that people are constantly exposed to new things. Koreans also very curious about the West. They are well traveled, so they know a lot of brands. And I think just being such a really well educated, discerning consumer, right? It means that innovation in luxury also has to happen constantly because people are just exposed to it. And then with art, it's I think that art experiences, this comes from that quick development. I think there is this need, this hunger for culture that was just in the backseat for a long time, and so again, also with the attention that the Korean culture has been receiving, I think it just feels very rewarding for Korean people to finally see their culture being respected, right, and then being at the forefront. So yeah, it's a very, very unique combination of having this huge amount of people in one space, and they're all just used to things being new and dynamic.
Yeah, I mean there was. I mean, if you're looking at the history of Korean travel, let's say to Europe, or I mean the places where people have been traveling has been traditionally maybe Japan and also United States, and then on certain honeymoon places where they go on honeymoon or holiday locations. But I also observed. I mean, this is now going back quite some time that they were used to go in groups only, and they were want to see. See all the capital cities of Europe in 1 week, and then and then and that was sort of the experience because the photos were taken. And now I think there's a change where the generation that is traveling, even with their parents, they want to spend a little bit longer time and learn about where they are, and then an experience in a very different way, maybe stay a little bit longer plan in one place and then get absorb a lot of the interesting influences. But I also noticed something that there are some very well educated Koreans that have taken sort of the culinary to a next level. Even they are teaching like maybe some culinary which are popular in um, in France and etc., and then bring back some ideas to Korea, and then maybe it's incorporated somehow to what you see in the latest offerings. So I think that's kind of things that my observations also, that how things are moving so fast that there are very few people who said, "Oh, there's nothing to eat. I have to bring my own food with me." So no, I think that people are now more brave to try things that where they're going and exploring things. So that's things. But you mentioned the innovation doesn't have to be allowed, but should remain on brand. And can you talk a little bit about brands that have successfully balanced being subtle with innovation in the Korean luxury, just to give you a little bit of a taste of how you see things going on in Korea?
Sure. I think two things come to mind. Let's say a very small domestic brand and a huge European luxury brand. To give you an example, I'll start with the latter. So, for example, Chanel. I think that what they have been doing in the Korean market, in the past maybe couple of years, it's quite amazing. I think that they are able to be very playful and very engaging without really going against kind of the idea, the image that they're presenting. For example, obviously, I think we know Chanel is not one to really go digital first. They are quite classic, and they don't generally sell things online, right? They don't really do e-commerce that eagerly, but and then like no, they don't dab into Web3, gaming and things like that. But what I really loved about some of their activations here is, for example, there was a Coco Crush pop-up store in Seoul last month, I believe, or in August. That's last month, and time flies. And so basically, what they were able to do is first they Korean, or because I wasn't specifically for the Korean market, maybe because it was an Asia activation also in China, but I think it just really worked well here too. You have a lot of gamers in Korea, and women are also gamers, obviously. And what I loved is that in a way to kind of play with the concept, but not go against their DNA, they just installed two gaming machines with their Chanel or Coco Crush version of Pac-Man and memory card game. And I thought it was just a really interesting way to kind of do something that is digital, obviously, but then in a way where it's also retro and really fun, right? So I thought that was a really, really smart move to bring some freshness to the brand without really just going against who they are. And also, I think they're just really good at integrating their data. Because again, like I said, it doesn't have to be show off, it doesn't have to be VR, AR. It's just really about being able to leverage what you have on hand for a good purpose. And so, for example, for their pop-up stores, they're obviously very popular here in Korea because Chanel last year, if I remember well, they are now the top #1 selling luxury brand in Korea. So they obviously have a huge audience. And so you're able to sign up for the pop-up experience in advance using the Kakao Talk Messenger, right? The Uber app that the whole basically country uses. And so you sign up, and then when you enter the store, it's checked that you have arrived. You have the experience, and then in a few days, you receive a message saying, "How was it?" Maybe you want to take a look at that was the Coco Chanel collection, right? So sorry, the Coco Crush collection. So you maybe want to take a look at it, and then they connect you directly from the brand channel within the Kakao Talk Messenger to the Kakao gift store, which is one of the most important sales channels or online touchpoints in Korea. And again, like I said, obviously Chanel doesn't necessarily sell things online. So what you have is you can browse the collection. They have their own brand store, but then you can just basically from that window of browsing, you can connect to the store and call and inquire about that. So you have this beautiful connection from each touch point where you go from online to offline to again online, and then you can again go offline basically, and you have data that really enriches your knowledge of the consumer, right? And knowledge about their journey with the brand. So I thought that was really, really smart. Very simple things, kind of that even some brands aren't even. It's simple, but not that many actually brands, I think, leverage that richness of data that they can gather, especially from a market like Korea. And then another brand is a very small Korean brand Rave, if I remember the pronunciation correctly. It's a small fashion brand, and they have a store in Seongsu, one of the hottest kind of young Gen Z areas in Korea for shopping. And they have a very small store, right? It's not a big brand, and so again, kind of overwhelming the visitors with too much tech, I think would be go against, kind of it would be too strong for the small space they have. So, for example, what they do, they have, I think it was like 3 or 4 very small screens on one of the walls, and I thought that's such a cute way to engage your customer, because if they're kind of small, you have to come up and take a look at them, and it reminds me of photos that we hang on walls at home, but it's showing videos of models showcasing the collections. And I thought, this is like a really good way to play with your boundaries, right? To be let your boundaries help you evolve your ideas, and to become more creative. And I thought, again, screens, nothing super advanced, but again, just the unique way that they use it to create that intimate kind of more, or fit that intimate store atmosphere. I thought it was just a very smart way, and showcases exactly that you don't have to have the largest budgets, to come up with something really fun and interesting that sets you apart from other brands.
Is that predominant that in that area that you were mentioning about that you see this, or is it also in maybe in some of the mainstream retail areas of Seoul that you have seen it? How is that?
So these specific things that I mentioned, that's actually both of them, I believe, were in Seongsu, which is basically where we will have a mix of both domestic and overseas luxury brands
Yeah,
doing different activations, right? Some of that obviously will carry through to other stores in the city, but I think that's like the hotspot for
yeah.
innovation. And so yes, you can definitely find more examples in that area specifically.
That's very good. So, in other words, that the Korean or the consumers respond to this immersive customer experience in a very positive way. Then, and so it's not like you have this traditional luxury retail setting, and then you have these immersive experiences. And then, would you say that these immersive experiences are something that is not necessarily taking over, but they are actually very people who are drawn to these when they have a chance?
Oh yes, definitely. There are a lot of brands leverage that sign up for their experience on the Kakao Talk
Yeah,
option, and they're typically booked. They're not sold out because they don't actually pay for it, but they're just fully booked for the moment they launch. Sometimes they'll have that option of just walk in, but very often it's just they have to register and they're always like even I mean, big brands, but let's say the Teak, right? I think like obviously they're huge, but it's still they're quite have quite unique fragrances. I feel, right. It's a very sophisticated kind of taste that they cater to, and they're also fully booked
oh yeah.
basically for experiences. And yeah, I think it's a magnet. I think especially kind of in Korea where e-commerce for luxury is also very welcome. Right, like I said,
Yeah.
for the Kakao Talk, the gift store, they have a separate category called Lux, and then Bulgari, a lot of the even high fine jewelry brands, they will have their own store, and so and the only differentiator between that category and other categories is basically a black banner on top that says, and with Lux in white. And it's just enough to kind of change, to kind of cater to, okay, this is luxury online, right? And kind of fulfill that function. So, um, unlike in other geographies, people are just, that's digital is just what they use. And so they use it, they like it for luxury as well. So I think, especially when you have such audiences that enjoy the online experience even for luxury, then you have to really create something special for them offline, right? To make that distinction that this space is not only for transactions but for experiences as well.
Yeah. What is your view, and how can luxury brands stay innovative but while remaining true to their core identity? You mentioned Chanel being one of those classic brands. What are your views on that?
So I think that, innovation is important, especially in a market like Korea, where basically if you don't innovate, it's you really can disappear from the map in a sense, right? So, but I think like with any strategy really, for companies, you have to think of the why behind everything you do. And so I like to think about it also kind of like when you're shop sales, right? When I shop sales, I think, would I buy it for full price or not? So, and that's for me like, okay, if I would actually pay for it full price, that means I can purchase it on sale, and then I will actually wear it, for example. And for me, that's kind of similar to the hot technologies or hot trends that are happening. Would you do it if it wasn't super hot right now? What if it wasn't the hottest topic? Because I think it's very easy for brands, especially in like the dynamic setting of social media, to kind of get lost and just chase trends, and then very soon you're just in a situation where you don't even know who you are anymore because you're just chasing the next big thing. And so in that sense, the why really has to be there behind any activation or any decision, including innovation, so that there is this purpose. You know your audience, you know who you want to entice, and you think, okay, this is a dictionary, or of options for me, and which one do I want to choose? You don't have to choose everything, right? You don't have to be on all social media. Go on the ones that really work for you. So
Yeah,
that's kind of how I see it.
good. Um, as well, now we could a little bit step into from retail scene for hospitality. What unique aspects of the Korean retail scene could be translated into creating an immersive experience in the hospitality industry? Because we know that hospitality tend to be kind of a bit stuck in the way they are used to being done, and while the retail folks are very dynamic and so on, but I think there are
Mm.
some lessons to be learned by hospitality. But maybe we can share about, since you are now also looking into the hospitality side. So what are your observations on that, and what are your views?
Yeah, so I just came back from my Swiss module for the MLux, the Executive Master in Luxury Management program, and we had lectures at EHL in Lausanne, and so it was one more kind of strong experience where we really talked about how you can appeal also to the luxury hospitality consumer, and so but I think that because of the unique um, format of hospitality, right? It's a huge investment. It's a lot of resource. You have a lot of elements that need to be set up, and so you don't have as much freedom in format, I think, in general. But at the same time, I think what hospitality can recognize is that at the same time, yeah, let's say hotels or any such places, they have much more space to actually play with, and not a lot of brands will have so much space to actually assign to experiences, and then there are many limitations that they face. They need to rent out new spaces, right? So I think being kind of understanding that um, the way retail plays with art these days, I think it's a very interesting relationship. I think it's also very beneficial to artists because they reach the audience that typically they not maybe wouldn't step into a gallery or a museum, and then new conversations started. So the same, I think, with it's something that hospitality could explore a bit more, where art is not only the painting that hangs on the wall. It can really be just part of the entrance. You work with an artist who can create like a little passage, right? That gives you an experience of different light or different colors. And the choice of the artist, I think, again, it's like with innovation. Why do you want to work with that artist specifically? Do they have the same values? Do they work in a similar medium as you? Is there a common thread between your DNA and what the artist does. And so I think being a bit more playful and not just focus on really grand things, but even smaller things, then it can be furniture that you just place in the lobby. It can be working with ceramic artists, different artisans to include these elements. And I think it's just these kind of playing with formats, I think, is that lesson that hospitality could take from retail. There are so many different things you could explore just if you understand yourself and kind of look at the scene a bit. There are just so many different interesting artists or artisans that you can work with, and I think that's really amazing. And another thing is, I was actually thinking today, apart from that artistic element, what else is there that hospitality could really learn from retail? And I think that localization element as well. From what I've been, I've been speaking to my friends here that are in the hospitality industry about what they think people, when they come to Korea, what they look for in hospitality here. And I think people come here for key content, Korean content, right? So they really want to experience Korea when they come here. And so one of the complaints, let's say, from the guests that came to Korea was that they would go to these experiences. They want to come here, they want to explore the culture, but let's say the hotel, because it's a 5-star hotel, will have Bulgari beauty in the hotel, and they say, but Korea is so famous for Korean beauty. Why would I use Bulgari here when I can use Korean beauty? And so I think just, again, localizing, not only through working with local artists, but also through working with maybe some niche brands that are still have a very high quality that would be obviously on par with the experience you want to create, but just, and obviously that's in Korea. But I'm sure that each country, when you think about opening a location or running a location in a different country, there is something that is unique to that country that you can really incorporate into experience. And so I think more and more that localization, where it's not only about taking your brand as is to different markets, but making sure that it's unique, right? It's also, you're creating a beautiful portfolio of experiences, like with the Mandarin Oriental, maybe with their pens in a sense, right, or their fans. There's a lot, like I said, formats. I think there's just so many things you can do.
Yeah, yeah. I noticed that for instance, during the summer season, certain luxury brands worked very closely with the hotels in order to maybe bring a pop-up kiosk by the hotel, or even put their umbrellas by the pool, which is very typically of their brand colors. Was anything in Korea that you saw that one particular, some luxury brand was working with hotels, or is it very much? Because I have noticed that in Europe, but I'm not familiar with how it works in Korea.
Yeah, I noticed one specific thing that really popped up was but the government are working with a hotel in Korea, luxury hotel. So they brought that format here. I wasn't able to visit, unfortunately, but I think these experiences mentioned summer, but also I think right now what's happening in Korea, because this whole art week I'm looking at my calendar. It was just 2 weeks ago or 3 weeks ago. So many beautiful activations in galleries, at the art fairs. Seoul now had its 3rd edition of the partnership between Kiev, the Korean International Art Fair, and Free Seoul. And so there are just a plethora of different kind of also luxury related experiences where luxury and art stood hand in hand. And I think that's just such a great moment to also, that because it's still kind of you can start the last week of August, early September, you still can bank in on that summer experience. I think in Korea, really leveraging that potential of doing something with a Korean artist, you then can appear on the scene. So I think that's not even necessarily just repeating the format of this kind of resort experience. There are different things that you can do around the summer that can be very, very interesting.
Yeah, yeah.
And I would love to see that.
Absolutely. You mentioned about this rise of digital and physical retail convergence in Korea.
Mhm.
Uh, what could the hospitality industry adapt to create this seamless, immersive experience that you already mentioned that some retail brand is doing through the Kakao
Mhm.
channels?
Yeah, so another thing that I see more and more these days is cacao reservations,
Yeah,
basically that you can use for um, even just such a thing as artist talk, right? From really using it for hotels and travel to just simple reservations for museums and so on. And I think again, then you create that you reach the consumer or your audience where they are on all the time. You engage them, so you create traffic. You bring traffic to your experience. Then you're able to check them in, so you have that data, and then you're able to follow up and create multiple touch points afterwards to kind of bring back the memory of the amazing experience you have created. So I think it's just really important to understand especially in Asian markets, and that's not only specific to Korea, to really understand the landscape that you're working in, and not just stick to your to the tactics that you have in the strategies that you have from the markets where you're very successful, because that's not necessarily just replicating that here in Asia is it's not necessarily going to work. And we know obviously of some markets that, due to the specific, let's say, political setting, there are some channels that are uh, designated in a sense to that specific country. But for example, in Korea, you still have Google is, I think, around 35% has of the market, of their search engine market, and then you have Naver, which is at around, I think, 56%. And one thing that Google is not able to do is it just doesn't have all of these add-on services that Naver provides, right? It really is a much more robust ecosystem than Google. And so leveraging all of these different elements, everyone has basically a Naver installed on their phone, everyone has Kakao on their phone, and you're able to reach your audience through so many different channels. So just remember to understand where people are.
yeah,
How can you create these connections? And I think another kind of cautionary tale here is Sephora. Is of course Korea and beauty. It's a tough market, but you have Sephora, who is such a giant. Everywhere, every market they enter, basically they really dominated, and they had to exit Korea after 5 years. Why? Because one of the reasons is basically just, I think there wasn't enough humility for the market to really, they just entered some super important for their sector channels too late. They didn't innovate the spaces that they created. I remember going to the same store for 5 years and it was just really the same over 5 years. When the Olive Young, the Korean beauty chain store, that was just every few months they would change something. Obviously, they wouldn't rebuild the store, but they would change something, make it more interesting for people
yeah.
to come back to, right? And so I think it's understanding the dynamic, the channels that your audiences use, and making sure that you connect with them there. I think it really helps to collect data from actually an audience that is very open about using the data. In Korea, to use any sort of thing, basically have to register, right? So people are used to the fact that, okay, I'll give up my data, but typically, okay, what am I going to get in return? And if you're able to actually leverage that data for something to make and create a meaningful connection with your audience, I think that's when you really can ensure that you have a bigger chance of really becoming known on the market, and creating a good relationship here with the Korean audience.
Excellent. Now, of course, I want to also understand a little bit about your personal view on certain things like the Korean pop culture. It's a global sensation. Do you have a favorite K-pop artist or drama that you think perfectly captures the essence of Korean luxury and innovation?
So actually, for Korean dramas, I have to say I'm a big fan of the Korean noir. Um, uh, cinema, so I don't think that any of my favorite things would necessarily fit that topic. Maybe perhaps I think there was a hit show of Crash Landing on You, sorry.
Yes.
So there is that element of the Harris, and she creates a brand. I think so a bit of that it does show kind of the idea, I think, of the highest stratus of the society, how they consume. But I think in terms of K-pop, I have a very eclectic music taste. So it's a taste in music. So it's not necessarily that I don't listen to K-pop, because if I enjoy it, I think I'll listen to music to a song or two. But what really sticks with me is I first came to Korea in 2008, and that's when I think the so-called second generation of K-pop was happening. So Big Bang, 2NE1, these really big stars. And for Big Bang, one of their members is called G-Dragon, and he was the first, I believe, Korean ambassador, if not Asian, to work to be a global ambassador for a luxury brand. That was Chanel. And so I really enjoy going back to some of his music videos. I think one of them was like from 8 years ago. It's called Crayon. And I think you can see that he's such I think that he really is an artist. You can see that he's a very multifaceted persona, and it's a very fun video. It's very colorful, but you also have luxury in a really fun way incorporated in that. You can see a lot of his personality kind of shine through the video, and I think it kind of shows you why K-pop and luxury. It's like, where did it start? I think it's just a very joyful experience, and it's very sophisticated, like as in visually sophisticated, not necessarily just kind of like not quiet luxury, but there's something very visually polished about it. And I think in that sense, that the attention to detail that comes with K-pop, because it is such a strong industry built out, I think that that level of sophistication in that sense really works well with luxury, and that's where the interesting partnerships come from.
Very good. What's the most memorable or surprising customer experience that you have come across through all those years in Korea? Something that made you think, only in Korea?
So I think I'll go back to retail, and it is quite a recent experience actually, but I thought it was just really wow in Korea, only in Korea. So there is this brand called Other Error, and it's a kind of street fashion brand, more premium, and what they create in their stores, it's beyond anything I have ever experienced anywhere. It's a very futuristic brand, and so I went to their Songso store. Like I said, that's the area where all the hot pop-ups are happening, and you just really enter into an experience. You just feel it from beginning. You have basically 3 rooms before you enter the store, and even the beginning of the 4th room, it's basically a kind of a spaceship that is placed in above a water container, basically like bubbling water, like a crack in the concrete, and you have a little lake with bubbling water, and that spaceship, there. And then in the room preceding that, you have it's like a space construction with an astronaut hanging from the ceiling, and it's just like it just sets in such an amazing tone. There's just so much curiosity when you enter the space, and each and every little thing that they do, it's just it's a glorious surprise. And for example, I went to another store in Apgujeong, and there they have it's a standalone tall building where they have kind of narrower spaces to work with, in a sense. And the staircase, it has a stained glass window built in. They have a mirror just next to the stained glass, because like I said, it's a very narrow passage, so it really amplifies the colors. And then on the ground, between the floor and the staircase, where there's an empty space, they built in a space cathedral with another stained glass kind of installation, and there are miniature figurines kind of like at the altar telling a story. That's, like I said, it's a very futuristic brand, and you're just thinking, honestly, like, who would have thought to put all of these little surprises here and there for people to discover as they move through the spaces, different layers of stones as the tables and so on. I just thought really they're not, they're not a globally recognized brand. They don't have the budgets of the Chanels and the Louis Vuittons out there, but they really understand that this is how they stand out, and they create a very loyal audience. And I thought, like, just wow, honestly, wow. Like, I love just going there to be wowed by them.
Wonderful. Well, these are some very hot tips that you're giving out now. So for the audience to take note of, and I really learned something myself. Places to go for my next visit in Korea. But when you're not immersed in the world of luxury and innovation, where's your go-to spot to unwind and get inspired?
Yeah. So exactly. Good question, because it is such an intense environment, and because I've been living in the city center basically for the past 16 years, and it gets noisy, and I have a very curious brain that also likes a lot of information. So I'm very lucky to, despite being, like I said, in the city center where I live basically 20 minutes away from the main palace, and then 20 minutes away the other way from Hongdae, which is the kind of student, right, university hotspot. I also live next. Basically, I have a mountain behind my place, and also in front of me. And then, if I just take a 7-minute walk, I arrive at the Hongdae stream, and it's becoming, I think I see more and more young non-Korean kind of people coming also to visit it. So I think it's getting popular with the non-Korean audience here in Korea as well. And there is an artificial, but still one of the most beautiful waterfalls. And so, like, honestly, 7 minutes away from my house in the city center, I'm able to go to that waterfall, listen to water, look at the beautiful, obviously, water falling, and then take a walk on the little hill, which is also beautifully, beautifully arranged for walks. And so I'd really try to take advantage of the nature that used to be, I mean, still, obviously, with so many people living in one place, it's not easy to come by in Korea. And when I'm not doing that, I try to swim. So again, water.
Very good. Well, Dominika, this has been a very interesting conversation with you today. If people are interested to find out more about you, I mean DKL at company, how can they reach out to you, and where can they find you on different channels?
So I'm very active on LinkedIn, and very happy to respond to invitations to connect or to just chat. I really thrive on making connections with people and exchanging ideas. I think it really enriches us, and I'm so happy that that's how we met, right? So very happy to, like I said, to do that. And then also I have my company has a website, which is also linked on my LinkedIn page. It's www.dklgrp from group.com. And so there I have, it's a very small website, but I like to put my musings that I put on LinkedIn also on the blog on the website, so that there is like a little library of my explorations of the Korean retail scene, and art scene in connection to that. So if anyone's interested to read a bit more on the topic, I would like to welcome them to invite them to the website.
Well, I follow you regularly on LinkedIn, and I really enjoy your posts. And I think something that I recommend all of you viewers or who are listening into this podcast to check out Dominika's account in LinkedIn. There's a lot of wealth of information, and in today's discussion and conversation, we only scratched the surface a little bit, but I think you can learn even much more by following Dominika on LinkedIn. So thank you so much for this. You've been giving lots of insight, and I learned so much today from you. So I look forward to having another discussion with you maybe during next year, and because things have changed, I'm sure.
Oh, yes. And I think sometimes visiting every 3 months is enough? No, every month. So I definitely have some new materials to share. And thank you so much for the invitation, Sam-Erik. It was really an honor to be here and speak to you and address your audience.
Thanks for joining us this week on the Social Hotelier Show. Make sure to visit our website, The Social Hotelier Show, blueberry.net, where you can subscribe to the show in Apple Podcast, Spotify, Google Play, or via RSS, so you never miss a show. While you're at it, if you found value in this show, we appreciate a rating in Apple Podcast. Or if you simply tell a friend about the show, that will help us out too. Be sure to tune in for our next episode.